Thank you. Thanks for reminding me. Yeah. I'm Hui-Ming Lu. And this is Ben Ward. We are both from Kansas State. And I work at the Center for Advancement of Teaching and Learning. My work in the center is very interesting. I love this job. I'm in charge of a couple of websites, and I teach some sessions of a course called Principles of College Teachings. And also do some training at the GTA orientation and help the organizing the teaching retreat, all things related to teaching and learning. So it's a very interesting job. And I'm going to let Ben to introduce himself.
Okay. And as Wei-Ming mentioned, my name is Ben Ward, and I'm an instructional designer in the Information Technology Assistance Center, which I always think of as ITAC affectionately. And principally my job has been for the last 7 or so years helping instructors develop online courses of one flavor or another, or just in fact incorporating technology at all in teaching. And with that said, we're going to take you on our journey through Prezi. It's an application that Wei-Ming and I independently discovered, and then she suggested that we present about it, and I hope you enjoy. I'll hand it back over to Wei-Ming, and she'll give you a kind of a taste and an introduction.
We are very excited to share this cool tool with you. Before we started, I guess we could say everyone in this room had experience with slide presentation, either with PowerPoint or Keynote. Am I right? Do you love them? If you love PowerPoint or Keynote, raise your hand. Okay, we see a couple of hands. That's good, but majority of people seems at least not sure, right? Well, I think we have a kind of good reason. Don't say good reason. Say okay, whether either I'm not particularly fun with it or not, because all those slides, no matter whether it's PowerPoint or Keynote, it's slide-based, it's sequenced. We are limited to the sequence of the order and the slides. We cannot kind of jump around. We have to kind of go slide by slide. And this limits the presenters. Whenever we want to share our ideas, want to show our work, or kind of use those presentations for discussions, it creates a limitation. But here, when we discover this tool, Prezi, we think, oh, well, Prezi provides very nice features, probably, and even more possibilities that allow us to do the presentation different way, make the presentation more visualized. Well, so that's why we are here today. Want to introduce you this cool tool. So first we said, okay, probably I've already talked a little bit about why Prezi, right? Because we are not 100% happy with PowerPoint or Keynote. So when there's alternative with another tool, we want to try it. And with Prezi, before I probably need to give a little more introduce about Prezi, is that it is a free tool. If you choose basic version, or Ben and I will both use the Agile version, EDU version. It's a little bit higher version than basic one. But if you want the full function of the Prezi, I think they have kind of, how much?
It's a paid.
It's paid.
It varies. If you're doing the commercial license, it gets fairly expensive really quickly, especially if you're planning to store a fair amount on their servers. And it's on a month-by-month subscription fee. But if you're doing the education, they actually move it up a whole price bracket right off the bat. So you can actually get, what is it, about 500 gigabytes of data that you can store.
500 megabytes.
Or is it megabytes?
Yeah.
It is a fair chunk that you can store online with the EDU version of it.
Right, but I think with these features, as the regular user presenter, I think we're happy with this category of the account, the EDU account. So it's free, it's web-based, and particularly since it's web-based, we can access it anywhere, anytime. And I like it is because when I work at office, when I use a PowerPoint, that's the latest version. But if sometimes I don't complete it, I want to do more work at home, so I take it home, but the version at home, it's not the latest. Then I have to be very careful to make sure that when I save it, the version at home would be able to read it. I don't like that part. But with Prezi, no problem with this version problem. Yeah, and also Prezi provides that very nice, easy and nice design tools. Later on, when we explore more about Prezi, you will see what kind of tools it provides. And the presentation, maybe since now we have already gone through a couple slides, you've already seen that. The presentation format with Prezi, it's a little bit, it's more visualization driven. It gives more, it's more visual orientated comparing to the PowerPoint or Keynote. And also the motion movement elements, it's quite easy to implement. I like this because when you first started to try it, the menu is very easy to follow, and it has kind of very interesting Zimbra wheel, right? You can just play with Zimbra wheel, and then it provides all those features you want to do with it. And let's go to the next one. When we use Prezi to create the presentation, Prezi, think of this, usually if we use the Keynote or PowerPoint, it's slide. But Prezi is totally different. It's like a canvas. It's like a big map. You could put all of the elements, the presentation elements or assets put into there. It gives you the freedom, how you want your layout, how you want the organize. So and the space kind of just boundaries, not like slide. You are limited in that slide. But with Prezi, it's not a problem at all. So we got a boundary space to work on it. So next, after we talk about this why, we're going to show you some examples, some simple Prezi ways to visual concepts. We will show the first example is comparison and then the consequence. We will use examples that we got from some professors. They use these PowerPoints in their real classroom. We borrow those PowerPoints and then put into the Prezi. We can see the difference. Here's a PowerPoint example.
Yes. This is from animal science. And frequently, especially in fields like animal sciences, we're making comparisons. And as you can see right off the bat, this is a terribly static image. I mean, everything I'm going to talk about is just sitting there. We're not going back and forth or anything of that nature. And you're trapped. You're trapped in this, 4:3 aspect ratio. It's like having an index card straight in front of you.
Okay, so we made a little bit conversion, put into Prezi. It's part of that PowerPoint.
So now it starts becoming more dynamic. You have movement, and you can redress points and point out things, and pull focus onto specific attributes.
So with the comparison features, also we will show another example about the sequence that Prezi could visualize this concept different way.
Let's go ahead and keep this is the full version.
This example is original version was created in Keynote. Actually, this instructor did a very nice job compared to most instructors are think.
And she does incorporate a fair amount of motion, but it's fairly predictable.
So that's the slides she used in her class, in a biology class. Well, here's in Prezi. We arranged it in a different way.
And you can actually move through processes in Prezi, which is kind of hard to do actually using either PowerPoint or even Keynote. And more importantly, you can actually do both in conjunction. You can do sequencing and comparing. Now, we are trying to keep it fairly simple at the beginning as we kind of evolve forward, and we're trying to use real-life examples and put some motion and movement and life into them.
So next, we are going to show something could be a little bit then Prezi in a little bit advanced way to visualize concept. If we go to the next. We've already shown these. Okay, let's go to the. Okay, so even in the, we have created simple conversions. We'll integrate those features that Prezi allows. This alignment, clustering, hierarchy, and pulling focus, all these things, Prezi would give the ability to do those different way. Comparing to PowerPoint and the Keynote.
Now, a lot of these ideas are pulled from a variety of fields. Some of this is from interface design, some of it's from graphic design, some of it's even as simple as things like clustering that you'd find in doing concept maps and such. But Prezi lends itself to using all these. So we're going to start with our PowerPoint version of it to just kind of give us an idea where we're coming from. And this is actually from an architectural engineering course discussing lighting systems design. Ultimately, in the end, what we call daylighting. And we do have graphical elements because it is, in the end, discussing about how to use daylight in building and design. But we quickly fall into the trap that all people in PowerPoint sooner or later do with instruction. And you'll see this throughout the entire presentation. And this is not to speak poorly, because this is actually not a bad slideshow when you get down to it. But here's our first wall of text. And we will have more walls of text as we continue along, where students will look at it and quickly tune out. As she does try to illustrate some things with images where applicable. But that is one of the biggest problems that is really easy to do in PowerPoint and actually very difficult to do in Prezi, which is to be very text-oriented. Because even in Prezi, when you are using any text, it becomes pretty much a graphical element. Now, the reason Wei Ming and I chose to use actual live versions of PowerPoints is kind of like Greek text when you're doing graphic design. We wanted you to have some context and to see how things look when they're actually being used, and then compare it to being rebuilt using other approaches. And then after we do that, we'll actually go in and show how to use the tool to some degree. And it does get a little more painful when we start breaking into the equations.
And it's a long PowerPoint presentation. It has a lot of slides.
But there are moments where we break away from it and we actually see some visual examples. And we'll call that the end of this presentation. Now, none of us are experts actually in biology or animal science or in architectural engineer, so forgive us if we can't really expound upon the content of the shows we're showing right now. But what we can show you is kind of what the tool will allow us to do with it. And while we were building this, Wei Ming talked me into showing you what the whole presentation looks like from a 10,000 foot view to begin with. So we pull in real quickly and we just try to keep towards central focus of elements and lose as many words as we can along the way so that we actually are focusing on the visual elements. And then when we do drop in text, it's more of a center of interest. It's not something that's there that we read to the students. It's something to catch them. It's an important statement. It's something we focus. And we draw their eye in various ways, like tilting it a little off center, pulling the focus in tight. And even when we do use text, we try to use things like proximity, keeping our titles close to our bulleted points so that everything seems to be associated, but we try to minimize this where we can. And we try to keep it moving. Now it helps if I actually hit the little button. So as we go in there, we'll start doing things like this. We'll hit in objectives for daylighting, and then we'll show a whole cluster. Now this is no longer just a bulleted list as it was earlier in the slides. And then we can pull into individual elements and look at them closely and have a moment to discuss what makes what significant. And then when we move to other points, you can feel the transition. We're pulling the focus from one place to another and using the motion to do it. And as you see, I'm using alignment. Because it's a canvas, I have to be careful with my alignment, because you can just literally drop elements everywhere on this canvas and have no sense of rhyme or reason. And because there aren't boundaries like we're used to in PowerPoint or Keynote, you have to create your own boundaries. So even in this case, I'm using the edge of the image to create a sense of association between the text and the image. So everything seems to work together, but that doesn't mean I can't vary it a little. And of course there are some things like graphs that you just can't escape because you have to talk about them. They're what we're discussing. The problem comes when you start getting large lists. You have to start thinking of how you're going to work through those in a meaningful manner. So we kind of started stealing from things like credits in a movie. And you scroll through. And then when we get into the equations, and there is no escape at this point.
Actually, I do want to mention that actually somehow the setting of the monitor here is darker, but if we see from our computer, it's much lighter, so it will be easier to see. But on this screen,
I
seems
actually think
harder
it's kind of the distance to throw, because we actually ran this on a projector in our own office and didn't quite have that dimness in there. Let me see. It's not going to affect anything. And then we can actually get into the actual images. And this is another form of clustering, and we're keeping them in close proximity to each other. This show the association. And there's some kind of hidden implications, like the direction of the light. We move them in association with each other. And we're not stuck to just vertical formats. We can do horizontal formats too. And it really just disappears on this big throw here. Well, when we get to building that, we'll address this issue real quickly. Yes.
How are you navigating? I don't see you flipping left and right.
It is pretty much just left and right. You can at any point in time, and that's actually one of the nice features about this program. I'm just using my arrow keys left and right like I would in a PowerPoint. But the neat thing about Prezi is it remembers where you were during a presentation. But I can use the wheel on my mouse and spin things out. I can grab, I can drag and pull into other points. Just free form at any given point in time. And so I can literally make a point anywhere I want to at any point in the presentation. I just click and drag, and I'm there. And I can focus in and out using my up and down arrows accordingly. Or I can just return to where I was last, and it promptly jumps back. Yes.
Does 3C allow you to forward to existing PowerPoint presentation today and convert to the version compatible presentation?
The answer is yes, but it is a two-step process. I can restate it. Will Prezi allow you to convert your existing PowerPoints and pull it into their format? And the answer is yes, but it is a two-step process. Prezi is very compatible with two specific file types, not counting images and text. It's compatible with Adobe Acrobat files and with Flash files. So if you take your PowerPoint and convert it into a PDF, it will actually pull the whole PDF in there and break it into individual slides, which then you can tilt, turn, rotate, and do any of the fun things that you can normally do with Prezi. So with just a couple of quick steps, the whole presentation can be on their canvas, and you can immediately begin manipulating it. Yes? Absolutely. But you need to do that with the educational version. Otherwise, they won't give you that option. You have to pay for it.
The basic version doesn't have this feature, but if you sign up for education account, then it allows you to do that.
And what it gives you is basically a projector to play it in. Now, if you want to be able to edit it on your actual desktop, you need to run with the paid version. And once you have the paid version, you can actually run the entire software on your desktop and publish and save and upload where you feel fit. Yes?
What's your response to this new tool? Are they excited or are they like, it's just something?
You are our first audience. So are you excited?
You're our first audience.
Okay, that's good. So we are going to introduce to our KISS faculty very soon.
I used it briefly in a presentation on visual literacy. as kind of a warm-up to get people moving through the ideas about graphic design concepts. And we may later, if we have time, show some of those examples. But we actually...
We didn't get a chance like this to show the whole one.
This is our first run through with this.
So we want to do some experiments here first, then go back. Right.
And the answer is yes. But then we're into tricks. We're into tricks here. And I'll hop back into there because that's actually part of our presentation. We were going to discuss the things you can actually put into Prezi. You ready?
Yeah. Just one more thing that I would like to add before we move to this complex conversion. That when Ben showed you that example, probably you've already noticed that one shows the relationship and the context. Which is, if it's in PowerPoint or Keynote, we only see slide by slide. Then we won't be able to see the context and the relationship among those. But with Prezi, when he dragged around with the whole one and zoom in, zoom out with the whole piece, that one is much visualized, the concepts and the context relationship among the different pieces.
And it quickly becomes a tool for concept mapping and mind mapping and the like. But it also is a really nice tool for narrative structures. It's a good way to tell stories because you can drag people through a path in a sequence where there's a beginning and a middle and an end, and it's fairly intuitive in that way.
So we also want to show that example? Or later? Maybe. Okay. So when we show those 3 examples, probably you've already noticed that with Prezi, you could do these things: create, insert, and edit. All these features we can try with Prezi. So with insert, some of you have already asked whether we could do audio, video, image. See, all this actually Prezi really allows to create a multimedia presentation. We could integrate the audio, video, image, but with the Word or PowerPoint or Excel, if you need any of those, first we need to do one more step. Put them into, save them into PDF file, then go to Prezi, import the file. Just like here is the example.
And I should probably mention, when we get to audio, we're also to a point where you need to convert to a Flash format before you move it across. And if you haven't figured out, and I probably should point it out, Prezi is a Flash-based engine. It really, truly is. It's an application that was designed for Flash, and it ties to a database, writes and reads files, and all that fun stuff. And so it's neat. It's relatively slim. It's 98% ubiquitous to most browsers, but it also carries the new, I guess, onus or problem that comes with Flash, and in that if you have an iPad or an iPhone, Steve Jobs has declared war, and Flash is dead in his world. So you're not going to be playing it on those particular devices. But for the rest of the world, it functions perfectly well. And what's amazing is the amount of resolution you can actually pack into one of these.
Okay, yeah. With editing, we could do those things: rotating, scaling, copying, and pasting, all those editing features. And also, if we go to on create, it will allow. Here's a little that animation that Prezi would allow to import to create, but it's also Flash-based animation. Or if you create an interaction, you could do it in Flash,
Yes.
and then put into here. Well, so we want to
Let's go to before we close out to that end. Okay. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into the application, give you an idea how quick it works. And we'll also get an idea of some of the little inconsistencies and foibles that are still existing into the program as a whole. Signing up for an account, especially if you have an .edu email address, is about as easy as signing up for Facebook or a blog. It's not particularly difficult. You just pretty much fill out the form, hit the confirmation email, and away you go. Anytime you want to build a new Prezi, you just click New Prezi. It's a button up in the upper left-hand corner, and you just type in your new example. And it immediately gives you a canvas right off the bat. And there's a couple of features you need to see to understand how this all works. In the upper left-hand corner, you have what they call their bubble menu. And it's a little trippy at first if you are not used to using it, because it spins around and it moves and it gives you all sorts of fun little choices as you go. But if you're just entering in text, you can literally just double-click anywhere and it pops right up and you can start typing. And when you're done, you just click OK. And if you want to move it, which we obviously want to, you can just grab a hold of it and click it. When you click on something like this, let's get rid of this one because it's driving me crazy. When you click on any given element, you get what they call their zebra. And this zebra is kind of the handlebars that let you move around and manipulate all the objects that show up on the canvas. And it obscures the view of it. And this is one of those things that's a little bit frustrating about it. But on the flip side is if you grab the center of the zebra, you can drag it anywhere you want to. You grab in the middle where the rings are, and you can instantly scale quickly. And if you're using their text and so forth, it's all pretty much vector-driven graphics, so you don't end up with any pixelation or distortion. And if you grab the outer part of the wheel, you can just spin it in any direction you want to quickly and easily. So you can tilt and twist and move and do all those things pretty quickly. Now, they give you a little plus sign that opens up the menu for the basic tools that you use when you put any element in there. It also shows you the quick keys, which is very, very helpful. You can delete, duplicate, select more objects. You can bring to the foreground if you're layering your objects up, or you can send it backward. And of course, the very bottom goes so far to even have its own little movie about how to use the zebra. So
that's a little tutorial there.
They try to keep it as simple as possible. This is something you can build a lot of things really, really quickly on the fly. But you're not going to want to just use text. You're going to want to insert things, so we'll have to come over to our bubble menu at some point in time. I had to kind of wake it up. It was asleep. And normally when you see it, the center part's out here, and this is where we started, where you are writing. But when you want to, you can insert items, create frames, develop paths, select colors, which is essentially styles, or you can even show it and kind of pan through what you've built. The first function that most of us will want to do at one level or another is insert. And this is where you can literally load a myriad of different files. So in our example where we took the daylighting PowerPoint, I turned around, opened up Photoshop, stole the things I thought were worthwhile, and built a single image. When it brings it in, it looks relatively small and inobtrusive. It's a huge image. It's a massive image, and you'll see because it takes it a moment to load. A little longer than I'm used to, but we'll get there. It is still under a megabyte. It's not that massive, but it is a big image. Yeah. So we picked up a piece of lag somewhere where it's unhappy. This usually takes just a couple of seconds, if that. Well, normally when you first get your account and when you typically use Prezi, it just lives on the server. So the file size in of itself is kind of incidental. I mean, it's you could if you were doing screen capturing or something to that effect, but it's pretty much still natively a Flash server-driven application. Oh, I didn't like that. It says my internet connection is being wonky, which is what I was wondering about. This could be a fast ride into a brick wall here.
We know that something must be wrong. This is.
Yes.
So, I know that one of the big things deals with the capability of making it more dynamic and engaging.
Yes.
But how do you balance that with the whole problem of PowerPoint and adding animations and transitions that you don't need that sort of more distracting?
Well, part of it is to actually start using the canvas more as a concept map or a form of telling a story or as a narrative, and start using things like frames and groupings and clusterings and putting things in proximity to each other. In fact, if you read through the help documentation on the Prezi site, real quick, they warn you about it. If you overuse the motion, you can actually give people motion sickness. And believe me, the temptation is there, because it's really easy to just start popping in this motion and pan from side to side and tilt and spin, because it's easy to do and it's fun to do. And then the flip problem is that when you're actually presenting, it's fun and easy to move around a lot. And they really strongly promote the idea of, cluster your concepts together. Don't make the big, broad, sweeping movements. Show the whole and pull your focus inward. Show individual elements, then pull your focus outward and show everybody, the concepts in relationship to the whole. And actually use it more as a tool to show the concepts and as a tool to show the narrative of how things interrelate, rather than just motion for motion's sake. But the temptation's there, and they know it because they wouldn't put it in their help documentation if they didn't know it's there. And, I think like my sister, she's really prone to motion sickness. We probably would have lost her demo right here, truthfully. So you kind of have to control it in your own design, and part of the problem is you have a lot of power to do it really quickly. We did get an image in. The connection woke up. And as you can see, you can actually drive in an image with a fair amount of resolution. You're also seeing another problem that kind of drives me crazy about Flash APIs of this sort as a whole. Stay by the microphone or I get in trouble. Drag functionality in a Flash application can be a little wonky, and you all will notice it when you start using Prezi. Sometimes you'll click to start dragging, so we'll just click somewhere and start dragging. And you can start clicking to drag places, and every once in a while it hangs, just like this. And all of a sudden your mouse is tied to your screen and it's hung. And you'll be in a position where you have to click again to get loose. That happens. It's fairly common with Prezi that you'll be clicking and dragging and having to deal with that problem real quickly. So I'm going to send this to the very back just to be very sure. So I built this one right off at the beginning to give everybody kind of an idea of what you can do with just like Photoshop or existing files, so you wouldn't have to mess with it. We can upload lots of other things very quickly. We do have PDFs that actually are very nice, other images, things that come in fairly quickly and easily, and move them around. and just reorganize their canvas on the fly. But they also have a lot of tools that are there to help you kind of illustrate your point. You know, create arrows, lines, thicker lines.
Yep. I'm trying to.
All there are pretty quick and easy to use without much effort at all. Once you get past the inserting, this is a tool that Wei Ming likes to use a lot, and they strongly recommend you using a lot, is frames.
Yep.
You want to do some framing real quick, or let you hop in?
Well, in the previous part, probably you've already seen those. For example, if I want to group these two together, these two images, this one and this one, I will probably put a frame here, make it larger. See, kind of doing the grouping here. But also, I still have the choice when I show these two images. I could show this individual first and then put them together in the same frame, in the same slide, in the same view.
But it does allow you to kind of put boundaries in there. It's kind of like having one of those school buildings that were designed in the 70s where they suddenly decided walls were bad in a classroom. And if you ever walk back into one of those now, you'll discover they put all these temporary walls up to actually create the walls that they discovered they really needed. This is kind of the same thing. Your frames allow you to create boundaries. You can delineate your information so it's just not one massive cluster. But part of the biggest fun is actually the creation of paths. And you can create a path just merely by clicking on certain points, and it grabs on to where approximately it sees the center of the screen in that given view. This works really well when you're using their tools. It gets to be more problematic when you did, for example, what I did with the daylighting example, and I am heavily formatting everything I put into it. And when you reach those moments, you'll actually want to use the capture view, where you can just pull in very closely and constrain how you want that image to appear. And that way you've basically created a frame. Now at any point in time you want to test any of this, you can just hit your space bar and show it as it goes. I'll let the data catch up. We hit another lag spike here. All of a sudden everything's slowing down, which is kind of a problem with a web-based application. So then you can just pull in the focus. Now the fun thing is you can pull in the focus in any of a number of ways. You can get in there real close. You can actually use some quick keys and rotate your camera view, and that can really be a problem too. And I should warn you, rotating your camera view is hard.